So we have Skye Hamilton, PhD, and I think that's Dr. Hamilton. So Skyler is a psychotherapist, and she's just written a book, and it's called Empower Your Child to Heal. And so basically her philosophy is, or not only her philosophy, but the philosophy of her genre, if you like, is that using the power of the mind and what we think affects our body.
I agree with that completely.
And how it heals itself. And here is a woman that is in remission from multiple sclerosis, and you won't believe it when you see her.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And she said that she was blind and in a wheelchair, and now she's written a book, and she has a company called Healing Passages Counselling, and she's also a deep water free diver.
Have you seen the Netflix documentary about that?
I watched the movie The Big Blue, Le Grand Bleu, with Luc Besson.
It's
directed.
So cool.
Yeah. I'm terrified of that.
I mean, I could never.
Yeah,
I could never. But it's so amazing to watch the people do that. Oh, yeah. You need to talk to her about that.
So we have a big conversation about that. And I think that she's a woman of similar age to me, and she's just in a new circle of life. And I think there's so much everyone can learn from it. You're a decade younger. But yeah, here's a woman that's empowering women, empowering herself. And I think that very often you find these brilliant women that are doing all these amazing things.
And she's a walking testimony for it as well.
Exactly. But I also feel like she's healing and growing and learning in the process of doing it for everybody else.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be an interesting conversation. She has two daughters, Ella, 16, and Lily, 14. So she's also a mum, a single mum. And yeah, I'm really interested. She talks about the somatic effect of stress, trauma, and anxiety. And I'm really interested in that for lots of different reasons. But I keep hearing the word somatic. Is it somatic? I think it's somatic. And there's like somatic yoga and things like that. Or is it somatic? Could be somatic. I'll have to Google it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of spicy. So I want to know about it. But
I agree.
Yeah, what sort of questions, being a mum, and what kind of, like for your children, is there anything that they are having to deal with that, or anyone that you know that you think, well, I'd love to know how I can help that person more?
Well, I just think the stresses that the kids now are going through are way different than from when even I was younger, with social media and, I mean, everything.
With sports and the pressure to succeed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's a million different things that are causing so much, I mean, for lack of a better word, they're traumatic things for the children, like even in their typical lives. So just how, other than, disconnecting yourself and moving to a farm in the middle of nowhere, how do you teach the kids to work through processing what they're having to deal with on a daily basis?
Well, hopefully we'll find out. Or, you know what, moving to a farm in the middle of nowhere sounds like a really good idea.
Maybe.
Hello and welcome. My name's Kerry Sheffield, photographer and CEO of my own successful business. I'm also the host of She Networks, a great believer in lifting up women and loyal supporter to those that are around me. We are all surrounded by incredible women who are breaking the molds in this thing called life. Behind every successful online persona is a real person facing struggles, failures, and living real life stories that don't always have happy endings. We will have an honest conversation, dispel this myth of perfection, and find out what they consider a success, how they achieved it, and learn what they are still reaching for. You are not alone. Join the conversation.
So welcome, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Skyler, PhD. I'm so happy that you're here for lots of reasons, and one being that I really don't know that much about you, so it's a nice little journey. We just got together, we just did a shoot together, and so I feel like I'm just going to sit back and listen to everything about you. But yeah, introduce yourself as if you were professionally, and tell us about you and what it is that you do.
Well, I'm excited to share the space with you, Carrie. This will be fun to connect. And so I am a mind-body psychotherapist, and I specialize in how the mind impacts disease process, how it creates autoimmune diseases, how it creates GI disorders, and especially how it affects pediatrics. So how our thoughts create disease in our bodies.
So why did you go to pediatrics? Because we're going to talk about what led you on this health journey. And how old were you when you were affected? You were in a wheelchair, and so your health. How old were you when you were affected by your health that way?
So I was diagnosed in 2002.
So as
20.
yes, you're an adult.
27.
But what's made you? Do you feel that you have to start this journey in pediatrics because it's later in life it gets harder to correct the imbalances?
That's a good question. I think I chose pediatrics because so many parents are so helpless with no answers, and their kids almost seem powerless. It's like their bodies betraying them, and it doesn't just impact the child, it impacts the parents, the siblings, the grandparents, and when a child's sick, the whole family crumbles. It's different than a matriarch being sick. A child just impacts everybody, and that is a good point because, like the pediatrics, you can get in there, and their brain is so neuroplastic. It's actually, I can help a child heal in 6 months. It might take me a year for an adult.
So let's dial back a little bit. And we don't have to go back all the way to Dot. I just want to hear a little bit about your journey in life to get to where this became a thing in your life.
Yeah. So I actually was a boxer in Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I did a lot of research on you, but that didn't pop up.
That one's a little
Did
hidden.
you have a different name for the boxing? You had a stage name, didn't you?
It was Skyler Cooper.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to go away and have a look at that another day just for shits and giggles. The Skyler Cooper boxer. And look at you, tiny little thing that you are. So you're a boxer in Vegas. So when did that start? How old were you
I was
then?
about 25, and I started boxing in Vegas.
Well, did you study though before you went off to box in Vegas?
I was a vagabond. I traveled the world.
Wow. Wait, and your parents? So tell us about them a little bit.
My dad was a naval officer. He passed away when I was, 26.
Right.
And my mom's a stay-at-home mom, and I was a naval brat for a while. Lived in Iran, spoke Farsi, mostly Arizona and Florida. And my kid's dad and my husband at the time moved to Utah, and I took up boxing as a way to cope with my dad's death.
Wow.
So I would drive to Vegas at Sugar Ray Leonard's gym and became a little boxer.
Wow. I've met him. That's kind of funny. A little
Yeah.
crossover there. In London, he was over for a fight. So, boxing. And what kind of boxing? Were you like a featherweight or something? Or, I don't know. How does it work? I have no idea.
I don't remember what weight class, but I remember I had to starve myself to make it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a friend of ours, Grant and Tamir Hill, their daughter, he's a Hall of Famer, basketball, and owns Orlando City now with Tamir. But his daughter is boxing. But I think what was the movie Halle Berry was in? As a boxer, but I think it's more like cage boxing. It's a little bit different.
Oh gosh,
and their daughter's doing that, which is just terrifying. So you're boxing, and how far did you go with that?
I was training with some of the world champs. I was training with them, and I got really, really sick.
Right.
I was training 4 to 6 hours a day. I wasn't eating. I was, it sounds graphic, but you would spit so you wouldn't gain weight by swallowing your saliva.
Oh my gosh.
And you have to sweat a lot, and my body just fell.
You would spit saliva
so
for
you
your
didn't-
weight.
So you could make
wow,
weight, cut
that's
weight. You'd suck on
insane.
pennies. It's just a really unhealthy way of living to cut weight, to make it for your fighting weight. And I fell to the ground one day in convulsions and couldn't speak and was in and out of consciousness. And my husband picked me up, took me to the hospital. They put me in the ICU. And I had to have 2 units of blood to kind of bring me to a state of consciousness. And I was diagnosed with MS that hospital stay. I was fighting.
So an MS, that was something that was in your body that wasn't, and was it triggered by the way you were treating your body, you think? Yeah. Because I think a lot of things are dormant in us, aren't they? And then stress, anxiety, minds can make something happen. And,
so we have the death of my dad, we have
Yeah.
the physical stress of the boxing and the not eating properly, and just the grief process and the stress.
Yeah.
And this was a perfect storm to completely debilitate me. Like hospital, going blind, wheelchair, home health care nurses.
And the blindness, and that was that a result of the MS, or was that something else?
Yeah, the MS.
So MS, and we were having this conversation before you arrived because there's a couple of other people now, and bizarrely I've mentioned Tamir Hill, and Tamir Hill also had MS or has MS. in remission, I presume, the way, she's healthy right now. What does that mean, being in remission from MS? Because it's a degenerative disease, but it can pause, it can stop.
So
I know that your journey is somewhat different.
Yeah.
Say if somebody's not going on the journey that you've gone on, and they have MS, and maybe right now it's in remission. I'm a little bit confused. I think a lot of people might be about how MS works and how it can stop that way.
it just means there's no disease progression, that the
Right.
body has stopped demyelinating. The body has stopped eating the nerve endings, basically.
Right, okay.
And it just kind of slowed down and it stopped. But statistically, it increases and it will start getting worse. But if people can really follow some really good protocols, you can keep it in remission. And I like to say I was once diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It's very different the language you use.
Right, and that's it, and I'm
Yeah.
sure. So I don't want to, and everyone's different. I don't want to compare two
Yeah.
people. It was just, we happened to mention that name.
Yeah.
But so for you, your particular journey, you discover this, you're very, very sick. You're not a doctor at that moment in time. Obviously you had to heal yourself. So what was your healing journey?
I was hiking in Utah, and I was told if I keep up the lifestyle I'd be dead by 50. I could never have children. And I was a newlywed. I'm young. I'm still in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I went for hiking, but it was walking to get out of the house. And I just fell to the floor, or the sand, and it was red sand. I was just sobbing. And I'm sobbing so hard, there's mud. Like my hands are in a pile of mud. And I was like, all right, God, I'll sign up for this. I'll do this. I'll obey you. I have to make this help one person. I will suffer my lifetime as long as I can help one person. I'm like, fine, let's do this. And I just reached this moment where I just kind of surrendered into the disease, which was part of stop fighting it, which was part of the limbic response and mind-body connection. Then fast forward about maybe 10 years, I took a clinical trial drug, had an anaphylactic reaction, and I stopped breathing. So they take me in the ambulance and bag her, we're losing her. And I'm like, you're not losing me, I'm right here. And I can hear them panicking, and they're arguing whether to bag me or not. And I thought, I must not be breathing. So I said my kid's name over and over again, Ella Lily, Ella Lily, Ella Lily. And I took a big breath, and I woke up with my kid's dad. He's so amazing. He's holding my hand. I come to, and I went home, and I made a big decision. I'm done being sick.
Right.
I'm done.
So you were parenting in those 10 years, but also living with
Yes.
MS.
Yeah.
And then this happened. Okay.
Yeah. And I made a decision. I was done being sick, and that was my last day being sick.
So
Done.
How did that look? What happened for you next?
The emotion that I had was so strong, it outweighed all the trauma that came with the medical trauma. How did it look? Do you remember Donkey Kong?
Yeah,
Do
the
you know
video
Mario?
game.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I would lay in bed at night and imagine Mario with a paintbrush, painting in my myelin sheet as I slept, all the divots and the holes. And every night as I fell asleep, he would paint. And he'd paint my optic nerve, and he'd paint my spine and paint my neck. Wake up the next morning, and he would just paint. And I would imagine this regeneration of my neurons. I didn't even know what I was doing back then. I wasn't the doctor, didn't know neuroscience, didn't know about hypnosis.
But
I didn't
you
know
were
about anything.
just trying to repair yourself inside.
I was like, if I can create disease with so much stress that I'm under and these negative beliefs I have about myself, why can't I just create wellness? Let's just try it. Let's just try it.
But that's such a big leap as a human being, and from where we come from and how we function every day. What was going on around your life that you would be somebody that's thinking that way? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, were you watching things on the TV and other stories were relating to it, or how do you suddenly start to think, well, actually, I'm going to heal myself from within?
I was a single parent. The kid's dad's amazing, but we decided to part ways. And I have a 1- and 2-year-old at home.
Which is a lot if you're not in the best health.
And no family around. He had to move to Orlando for a job. I was in Tampa, and I had no family to help. I had no other option. I reached a point, I have no other option. Being sick is not an option.
So you got out of the hospital, you decide to heal yourself. How did you start? What was your process?
Realizing no one's coming.
But your physical logistic process, how did you start your road to getting a PhD?
So that's where it started with my mind. No one's coming. No one's coming to save me. And that's where it gets into the mind-body connection. I was in this subconscious victim state. So it was this victim mentality of someone has to help me, someone has to save me, but this is deep in the mind. So once I realized no one's coming, I have to do this by myself. I started meditating, I started journaling, I started hypnosis. I didn't even know any of this existed. This is long.
Yeah,
this is even before the internet.
That's what I think. That's where I was going from. Not to age anyone. I'm thinking, well, I know 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever, we weren't speaking in this way on a normal basis. I think now it's very different as this new younger generation, and of course, even from as young as early as the 70s. People were starting to get a bit more meditative and spiritual, whatever, but everything was so matter of fact beforehand. But really, it's only been in the last 10, 15 years, I feel that people are making this bigger, stronger connection. Like what you're talking about, you won't get laughed out of a room, but 20 years ago, you might have been laughed out of the room for talking the way that you're talking now. And we were just saying beforehand about women going through the menopause. They have a good one or a bad one, depending on what physical state they're in or mental state at that time. And having gone through 2 years of trauma, I know how it's affected me physically, and I know what a physical mess I was. I was so bad that I thought, I'm actually going to give myself something serious here. And I'm still scared of that, I get to such a point that you give up on yourself a little bit, that this is when you become vulnerable. So here you are at your most vulnerable. Now you decided to get up and fight. You start to meditate and do all these things. There's an education that had to happen.
Yeah, so it was the opposite. I decided to surrender. So it started with making a decision to get better mentally. And then what happens when you make a decision to get better, you have a complete different cellular restructure. So there's a way that I developed since I started this process myself. It was a way, I've narrowed it down to 7 ways that I started training my brain to train my body to surrender and heal the autoimmune disease and GIs. So it's not go for a walk, go in the sunlight. Those help, but it starts with deactivating the nervous system, the stress response, anxiety, depression, the thoughts. Oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I had all these bad thoughts. So first thing was like switching off this nervous system response and getting the body to slow down and to stop fighting. When I was a boxer, I was fighting. My dad's death, I was fighting emotion. So it was this switch that has to happen when the nervous system goes, okay, wait. The body cannot heal if it's in a chronic state of stress. So it was switching that mindset into, I've got to slow everything down. That was the first step.
And tell us from there.
Then it was in doing imagination work, imagining every night, little Mario painting in the myelin. Then it was understanding the subconscious mind. What are my negative core beliefs? They're called ants, automatic negative thoughts. What are my negative core beliefs? Mine was I hate myself. Actually, it was I bleep hate myself. Nice little...
And where do you think that come from? Where did that self-loathing come from?
The first 7 years of life were imprinted with our core beliefs. We walk around in a hypnotic state. For some reason, the first 7 years of life, I hate myself, I'm not lovable, I'm not important. Those all I came to believe were true about myself.
And these are childhood traumas, you think?
I only have one I can think of. It was just, we get our messages from around us without even someone overtly saying, I don't love you. Someone could say, I can love you so much, and they pay more attention to another sibling inadvertently, like, oh my God, I'm unloved.
So you've gone on, even if it's not true, it's a belief that you've created.
That's it. That's it.
What is it? I think I've said before, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true.
Yes. So it's this concept where I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not skinny enough, whatever it could be. It was these ants that get imprinted, and it created this victim mentality. So you start tackling it from different ways: your negative core beliefs, activating your nervous system, and visualization. So we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Typically, someone with autoimmune has 40 to 50 negative thoughts a day. Wow. 1,000. Can you imagine having 40,000 negative thoughts a day? For every For every thought we have hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions through our body.
Yeah, and I truly believe that if you think something, your body starts to fight it into existence. So if you tell yourself, I don't know, you're fat and you're ugly, then, you know, your body starts to react to that and beat itself up. And, you know, and I've been using these visualizations, and I'd love to use it for my health, and I need to think that way. I was so anxious that I started to meditate. I got to the point where if I didn't meditate, and I need to get back into the habit of doing it, if I didn't meditate, I couldn't get through the day. I almost had to go in and have like I was so stressed out that I needed that minute for myself. Otherwise, because when I went to sleep and when I woke up, they were my most anxious times. And then throughout the waking hours of the day, I just did not stop. So I would just keep busy. And then I didn't have time to think. So I needed the meditation in the morning to just go in with enough energy to deal with the negativity. And yeah, it really did help me. And it's terrible that we don't allow ourselves that time and that space and those moments in order to regroup ourselves and to feel it. Like now I'm reading We Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor, which is so old, this book, the 80s, so the language is hysterical. And, you know, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And it's not all about money. It's just about, and I've written down a couple of mantras and I'm literally repeating them to myself. There's something I want to happen here and there's something I want to happen here. And I'm just trying to speak it into existence. But yeah, I learned that if you don't write it down or you don't visualize the thing or show it, it won't manifest itself. It won't appear as you want it to be, you know?
So that's a really good point. You said speak it into existence. Mm-hmm. Part of getting it is you want to feel it. Mm-hmm. You want to feel it into existence first.
Yeah.
So it was imagining, I was actually in a wheelchair. So I used to imagine what my wheelchair would look like. I'd put little flames on it and decorate it. And I'm like, wait, I'm creating this reality where I'm going to have this wheelchair. So instead I started imagining I'm 86 and I'm boogie boarding with my grandkids like my grandmother did with me. And so I started imagining this future. Believe it or not, I actually imagined my children burying me, but I'm really old and they're old and my grandkids are there. Yeah. So I started imagining what I wanted to feel energetically at a certain age. When you imagine how you feel energetically, you change the entire chemistry inside your body. Then your reality will start to follow that.
When did you feel that you had a physical breakthrough? When did you feel like all of this time, this energy, was there a moment where you felt like, okay, this is... I mean, did you go in there believing, okay, this is going to happen, this is working, or was there a moment where you were like, oh my God, I am actually making this happen for myself?
I knew I could heal myself because I told I could never have children. I had 2 of them. Mm-hmm. I was like, watch me, and actually the doctor fired me. He told me I shouldn't have kids. I went and found a doctor who would let me. So it was, I knew I could. And I had this is actually part of the other ways of overcoming it. I had such an unwavering inherent knowingness that I could do this. That my body was designed to heal itself. It was just so unwavering. You couldn't shake it. It was such a strong belief. And the moment I realized, oh my gosh, I'm better, when I went to reach out for someone for help, because I was so programmed to play this victim, oh my gosh, come help me. Yeah. But you don't realize you're doing it. It's this subconscious way. And I'm like, I'm not calling anyone, I can figure it out. And I was like, oh my God, I just said I can figure it out. And I thought, well, I'm a single parent, I'm working, I'm like, no, wait, I can figure this out. I'm healthy enough. And I remember sitting in this house and I've got my 2 babies. I'm like, I can figure it out. Oh my gosh, I feel so good. I can do this on my own. And that was the moment I was like, okay, I'm better. My legs aren't numb. My vision's improving. I'm not getting sick whenever I get stressed. I'm not playing the victim. I'm not thinking these bad thoughts. It was, whoa.
Are you seeing medical doctors at this point? And are they looking at you going, what the hell are you doing to be getting better? I mean, honestly.
I went in to see a neurologist. I hadn't seen her for a couple of years. I'm like, I'm scared to go because you have moments of doubt. Oh my gosh, what if I'm not getting better? What if I have this secret disease progression that I don't know about? Yes. So I go in to see her and she runs an MRI, excuse me. And she's like, all right, what are you doing different? And I said, okay, what do you mean? She's like, are you gluten-free? I'm like, no. I'm doing something called core hypnosis, changing your internal beliefs with mind-body connection. She's like, well, the lesions you had before, some of them are gone.
So lesions, and where do they?
Optic nerve lesion.
Right.
I had them all up and down my neck and my spine, all over my brain, all over. And she said some could be artifacts, which means some could just be there one read and not there the other read. But she's like, we show no disease progression. So I stopped going, and I stopped all medications, and I went to get life insurance, and they had to list any medical care. And it had been 5, 6, 7 years, and they couldn't find the records. So I don't even put it on records anymore. I just don't even.
You've moved on from that.
The only time I'll ever feel tingling in my leg if I've been really overworked, like I haven't slept, and I only
If you start neglecting yourself.
neglecting myself, maybe 2 hours of sleep, not much water, I'll get it, and then my body's going, hello, hello, you're doing something wrong
It's
here.
amazing because if I go and shoot a wedding, I did one last year with like 3 days of work. It was insane, and it's exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. I will get sick the moment I stop.
Yeah,
And it's my body's way of making me rest. I can almost predict it. And that maybe that's me speaking it into existence, so I can't be anywhere other than at home resting. I literally wipe myself out when I'll throw everything at it for a week, and then I'll come back a day. And then I did a tour in Africa, and it was all great and everything. And coming home on the plane, just because it was 29 hours, like a few flights. By the time I landed, after the 29 hours, I was bedridden for 2 days. And I didn't pick up a virus. There was nothing there. It wasn't something I need to take a pill for. It was my body's way going, okay, now you've been superhuman for a week. Now you need to, or a few weeks. Now you need to just stop. Talk to me about getting a PhD. How do you get a PhD in what you do?
I had to find a way to prove that I healed myself, and having a master's wasn't going to do it. I had to get an acronym behind my name to go, hey, this works, this is how I did it, this is how you can do it. So the kids were old enough, I went back to school, did the PhD while raising the kids and working.
How long does that take? And the reason I'm asking this question is not to question your PhD, because there could be other people like you.
Yeah.
I want them to understand what the process is in order for them to get the accreditation.
Don't expect to sleep, don't have time for any social life. Want to shave your head, and just completely forget that you have any sort of life outside of getting a doctoral degree.
How long does it take?
About 4 years.
4 years.
It's about 4
That's
years.
a commitment.
Oh,
And is it a big financial commitment here to get this?
Both, huge.
Really?
Huge. It's really expensive. It is a form of torture. It's a form of torture. This is the only way to put it. You have to want it. But I needed to have some acronym to say, hey, wait, this works.
Yeah.
This is why it works. I did it for the sole purpose that a master's wouldn't let me convey to people the passion that I want to teach. It wasn't gonna get the point across. So the acronym gives me the bridge to get the point of what I've done for myself. My daughter has an autoimmune after COVID.
I wanted to talk to you. That's exactly where I was going to go next. So you have these 2 girls. You've obviously been through what you've been through. What are you doing different with your children that maybe I didn't do with my children that we all should be learning to do for the benefit of our kids? I mean, Stephanie earlier was talking about how anxiety and trauma is affecting our children now purely by the pressure that they have academically, by social media, and by sports and the competitiveness, especially here. Like, you know, we don't really do college and high school sports as highly as in the States, in the UK. But the pressure to be the best of the best of the best, and also online, that pressure.
Yeah.
But anyway, what are you doing to help alleviate their stress?
There's actually the entire chapter dedicated to that.
And we're going to come to your book and talk about it, but talking about you in your home and how you're working through it.
It's the first thing I did when my kids were little is I made them a promise. I promise I will make a million more mistakes, and I promise I'll try not to repeat them. The first thing I did was alleviate that I make mistakes to model for them. I don't care if they make mistakes. And taking that, removing that internal pressure. Right now, if I did this survey with children, and it's just with taking all this pediatric information and asking them what you wish your parents knew. And I kind of got a cheat code for my own kids.
Yeah.
Because I'm collecting this. I'm like, okay, what do kids need to know? We have so much internal, external pressure on them. And I did this too. By the way, I screwed this up because I had a doctor give me a what for and schooled me on this. My third grader went in for GI symptoms, and he said, why is she talking about Harvard? Oh, he schooled me hardcore. And this is before my PhD.
Yeah.
So it is the internal, external pressure, to please parents.
Yeah.
I call it the 9/11 effect. We send our 5-year-olds to school and they have to celebrate every year the 9/11 impact. Now, back in my generation, I wasn't sick and you should be out playing. But the kids are addicted to devices, which the science completely destroys. The saying is, we'd rather you give your child methamphetamine than give your child a device. That's how much it impacts our nervous system. Yeah. So yeah, it's completely right. The 9/11 effect, they have to go to school, worry about mass shootings. We didn't have that growing up. The pressure to get into colleges, the pressure to perform, and social media look great. So if you look at, I call it the 9/11 effect. If you look at this global impact, this pressure, the kids' nervous systems are shot. I've had calls from kids as young as 4 years old. Their parents. Nervous system is shot from constant anxiety and stress. And because they hear the news on the TV, they see they're at school, it's just constant pressure and the nervous system is shot. So that's how you get these diseases. So with my kids, no news, no negative input, pressure off grades, go outside, skin your knee, climb a tree.
Yeah.
The whole point was to go outside and be a kid and raise them the old way outside without all the influences. I don't care what grade you get as long as you show up.
Yeah, and you put the effort in, and you're doing the best you can do. I always say, be you on a good day. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Just go be a kid.
Yeah, and you see it, and it's sad. And when we see young women come in here with a bad body dysmorphia or an impression of themselves, and I saw a beautiful young woman yesterday, and but she was almost a caricature of a beautiful woman.
Oh.
She was very young. She was in her early 20s, but the whole shape of her and the look of her was something that looked like it had been created out of a cartoon. And I thought to myself, well, no, you can't think that way because, we need to champion people, how they want to look and congratulate her on how great she looks. But then she almost didn't look like a real human being because everything about her was a shape that was an idealization of what the female form should look like. It wasn't created naturally. It was, it was enhanced. And I just felt a little bit, I felt bad for, it's a judgmental thought that I had, but I also felt bad on her for feeling that she had to do this to herself in order to look a certain way too. So, I think there is a bit of a tug of war going on with our thoughts. So you decided, with all this going on, you've got your PhD, you're clearly on this lifestyle curve, and it's healed you. You decided to write this book, Empower Your Child to Heal. Talk about why you wrote the book.
So after COVID, my daughter was diagnosed with arthritis of the spine and the hips. Oh, and I was walking her to the bus stop and she had a walker. Oh my gosh, it was just every parent who has a child with autoimmune disease, it is just, it's the most horrific, or any chronic illness, it is horrific to be a part of. The absolute sobbing and the crying, I don't want to get choked up, but it's such a painful process to witness your child go through it. So how old was she? She was 14 at the time. And just the tears and the hospital homebound. So she's walking to the bus stop with a cane and she's crying. She's in so much pain. Ella, yeah. And I walk back from the bus stop and I'm like, wait, I'm in the boat with millions of other parents with autoimmune. I have the oars. I've done this. It's like this huge epiphany as a crack of dawn. I have the oars. I can get us out of this. I know how to do this.
So you worked on yourself, but you'd never worked up to this moment with her on thinking that you could do the same thing. So that, until this was the epiphany.
Because we have such laws and ethics we have to follow, you can't therapize your own child.
Right.
So it never really dawned on me to cross that boundary.
I hadn't even thought about it either, but now you say it that way.
Yeah, and it's just hands off. It's just ingrained in our DNA.
Yeah.
And we're going to doctor, and I kept thinking, well, maybe my child will be different. Maybe there will be medication. No, doctors, tests, nothing. She's getting worse and worse. And I was like, wait, I know how to do this.
And this is a gut illness. How am I as a child of 14 suffering from arthritis? What is this? How is that happening?
COVID was definitely the catalyst. Pardon me. But she also came from a very stressful environment.
Do you think it's all factors?
Absolutely. She was exposed to someone who was rather uncomfortable with her, spoke to her in an ill manner, and before I could protect her from this person, he had deeply impacted her mental health. So I had to remove her from the situation to protect her mental health from this emotional, psychological abuse she was enduring. So now you've got this neural rewiring happening in her brain, introduce a virus. So she has these negative self-concepts. She was influenced by someone who was emotionally harmful to her. So the perfect storm was there. So my own child experienced it. So it was a way of, I know how to get her out of this. And she was in the victim phase that I was into. And I knew exactly what to do when she was in the victim phase. And so that's how this whole thing came to be. How do I, from a distance, empower her that she can heal without sounding like a nagging mom and not being a therapist?
Yeah.
And this, I'm not kidding, this whole book was written literally from the bus stop on the way back of the house. It was like, wait,
and the format of your book, what is it, like a daily journal for care, or just a passage of a route to travel in order to heal oneself or heal someone's child? Tell us about the book and the format it's taken.
So working with hundreds of pediatric patients, I really started, and with myself, I came up with a formula. How do I keep teaching this over and over again? And it sounds a little cheeky, but I narrowed it down to 7 ways. 7 ways that you can do: regulate your nervous system, deactivate it, control the automatic negative thoughts. So I developed these 7 ways that I start empowering kids. Hey, wait, start controlling your thoughts. Let's deactivate your nervous system. Start imagining your own body healing. Start imagining what's going to feel like when you graduate high school, what's going to feel like when you graduate college. So I developed these 7 ways without parental interference, because parents, this is a huge point. The number 1 complaint that kids have is parents' vibes.
Yeah.
The number 1 chief complaint is parents stress their kids out, and vibes or energy is actually contagious. If a parent is having a stress response, it literally leaves your bloodstream, leaves your skin, travels over, lands on your child's bloodstream, absorbs into their bloodstream. Now they've caught your vibes. It's only if they have their internal stressors, they have their parents' internal stressors internalized. So it was breaking down this process of, another thing I work with is attachment style, removing the child from the parent's stressors, creating this autonomy and the self-efficacy in the child that they can control their own health. So this book came to be, I can't keep teaching children 12 hours a day how to do this. How do I teach the parents this? Here's what I know. Here are 7 things that you can do. Watch your language. Hey, you need to eat. Have you eaten? If I was to say to you, you need to go clean the bathroom, you need to take the garbage out, you're going to start getting a little defensive. The second we say you need to, you usurp someone's power. So it's teaching parents certain languages you can use, how not to have your vibes catch it.
Because we all want to do better as parents. I mean, I've missed the boat now. My kids are up and out, but just you talking about stress factors, like the worst 2 years of my anxiety was, my youngest was alone in the house. Everyone else had gone. And he actually got quite sick in those 2 years, and his mental health, and he has stress and anxiety. And now I'm like thinking, damn, like I'm feeling responsible for what he's feeling. And, you know, we got him a counsellor, and he's taking care of himself, and he's gone off to college, and he's doing okay. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I'm not, my ego's not that big that I think because of me he is this, but you know, he was very vulnerable at that time. It was a really difficult time, and I probably wasn't there enough for him, and he's conscious of who I am. And I know, living around my mum, you know, we lived and breathed a certain way in order to accommodate whatever mood that she had. So yeah, I can 100% see it. But largely, most parents want their children to be amazing, be fantastic, do all the things, but we want them to be happy, we want them to be healthy. We are just not equipped in order to make that a possibility, and we do it all wrong. And then we found out after it's too late that we did it all wrong. So this book comes in at a perfect time that we can, it's a handbook for parents to do a better job, but what we've never been taught.
And there's no way you could even know it.
No.
And I love something you said, my ego, and this is actually a really big part of the book. It says parents genuinely check our ego at the door. I told my kids, I'll make a million more mistakes, I promise you.
Yeah.
I just won't do them again. And that's the hardest thing. I've had parents leave sessions. I'm like, I say it as gently as I can, but what I really want to say is, please don't wonder why your child is so anxious. You are running around without a head cut off right now, and you're screaming at your kid, and you're doing this, and it literally impacts their GI health. It impacts their gut microbiome. It impacts their nervous system. And the biggest part about the book, and I had to do it myself because I got schooled as a parent, all I was doing wrong. It was the biggest slice of humble pie I've ever had in my whole life. I left that office crying my eyes out. Oh my God, I'm totally screwing up, and I know better. For the parent, it's checking our ego, going, literally, what can I do to help my child? What am I doing wrong? So the book, to be very frank, is transparent with parents. If you're aware of this, you can literally begin to empower your child to heal just by checking a large part of our ego and what we are doing wrong as parents.
I think there's a whole generation of parents that are quite happy to check their ego. I think the generation before us, and I'm thinking about my parents and, beyond that they just never recognized anything that they did was affecting their children, and they were very selfish about it. Well, I did this, and you should understand why. And I do understand why, but your story affected my life. And I'm not going to apologize for expressing what that's done. And I know my stories has affected my children's life. I have an absolute consequence of that because we have an estrangement in our family. And so, I think it's a really powerful thing. And I think if any parent is not ready to take a good look at themselves and how they're affecting their child, then you've got no place being a parent. If we want to put the best humans out in the world, we can't think that we don't have to change in order to make that happen. And I think there's many, many people now that are very aware of their behavior and how it affects their children. I mean, if you don't, I don't know what planet you're living on, and I'm aware of it. Like you were talking about food and telling your kids they need to eat or whatever. I learned because I probably was doing it. We're talking about body issues and women. We talk about our bodies all the time. We know now we're not supposed to say, I want to go on a diet and I look fat and I'm this and this in front of our children. Well, I clearly was maybe doing that in front of my daughter, and she has issues with body. And I know it's not just from the home, it's every single avenue. And I was talking about that woman, that young woman changing her whole body for society. I never, ever now talk about food, how much food, what food, in front of my daughter. Yeah. She's 21 and she's an actor, so she's very conscious of how she looks. But I was, just by being in the room, a trigger for her. Not because I was mean to her about anything, but because I tried to help her, but I was not educated in a way I could help her that was helpful. And so I would try and guide her by offering all of the help, but it was the wrong help. And so when she saw me, I was literally a trigger for everything she had that she was conscious of about herself. So now I never do, and I never comment about it, and I'm never there. And we've reached this whole. I literally had to educate myself. I think I listened to an article. Rather than helping my daughter be the perfect version of what society wanted her to be, I just had to say to her, I kind of got to this point where I said, love yourself, or do what you need to do in order for you to love yourself. Like, be the person that you need to be. But now I'm just like, you're beautiful as you are, and you know what you need to do, and you'll be accepted as you are, whatever. You don't need to be a perfect size 0 in order to go do your job. And no, I won't tell you the best diet plan to go on in order to make this audition. It's really about that. But I had to change everything I believed in order to give her that.
Good parenting.
Well, a bit too late, you know.
No, too late.
But I wish that, and no one ever said that to me, you know. Like, I was called the dustbin growing up. That meant that I'd eat people's leftovers. Do you know what I mean? So that, and I was always called the big girl, and I don't think I ever used that language with my daughter, and she wasn't or ever is going to be that. But clearly, generational trauma was occurring, and I was making that happen. Do you believe that generational illnesses or so-called genetic disease has come from a genetic or a generational identity that we've had? Like people getting sick, like Parkinson's or something like that. Do you feel that the way people are raised, the way they're educated, what we've been led to believe our whole lives can cause illness in people and go down through generations?
Precisely, yes. Exactly. There's epigenetic transmission of trauma, and very few.
What was that?
Epigenetic transmission of trauma. Thank you for.
Yeah, no, I want to know and understand it.
So right now, the science shows 3 generations of trauma can be transmissible. In mice, I think it's 7 or 13, but in humans, it's 3 generations. But that's it exactly. The belief system that I'm going to get sick, my parents are going to get sick. I hear people all the time. My mom has dementia. I'm going to get dementia. I'm like, okay, you're getting dementia.
You're just going to give it to yourself.
And it plays a very big role, and it plays a bigger role in something called secondary gains.
Right.
Every autoimmune disease, and this is going to make some people uncomfortable, so just get comfortable with that concept right now. Every autoimmune disease and every GI disorder has what's called a secondary gain, some sort of motivating factor you are gaining from that illness. So my mom had it, I'm going to have it. Sometimes it can be identification of the parent. A child who has a GI disorder is looking to get out of school because they're so tired. My sister has autoimmune disorders, and before I was diagnosed, secondary gain.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my sister is like a second mom. She's just amazing for me. I wanted to be like her. Well, guess what I got? The same disease she had. So we do start on the subconscious level want to gain something by identifying people that we know have it, or gain something by avoiding something. There's some sort of gain that comes with it. And yes, it is transmissible from generation, but very few diseases are genetic. They're environmental based. And that's what we have to separate the misnomer, that genetic component. No, there's no organic reason for autoimmune or GIs. Sickle cell is genetic. Some things are genetic, but autoimmune and GI is not. It's environmental.
And environmental in what's around us and what we think and what we absorb and what we believe.
Yep, precisely.
And what does your day look like in order to keep yourself healthy?
I start with meditation. I roll over. I don't do it the
and
right
what is
way.
your process? When you talk about meditation, what does that look like for you? For some people, it could be going for a walk.
That too. I roll over, I hit play, and I fall back asleep.
Right. Okay.
Let's just be real world.
You're listening to audio.
Listening to audio, and I fall back asleep, and I set my alarm. I'm not doing the, let's just be real world. I hit play and let it register in my subconscious mind because I know that works. I get up, go for a walk in the morning, try to do an ice bath or an ice shower, and then start my day, 12 hours, then mom duty, blah, blah, blahs. Then when I go to bed, I do the cheeky thing. I do 5 things I'm grateful for right before I fall asleep. And then as I fall asleep, I set my intention for the next day. But the main thing that I love to do, this is my favorite tool in the whole wide world. Look for moments of glimmer throughout the entire day. Moments of glimmer, the way the sun's shining through it. Or if I feel a sad emotion, a moment of glimmer is, I love and accept that I feel really sad right now. And it sounds so cheesy, but so much suffering comes from the resistance of our dark side.
Yeah.
So I fully embrace, if I feel shame, guilt, remorse, envy, I love and accept that I feel a lot of shame right now. I can't believe I said that. I cannot believe I said that.
I look up and apologize 1,000 times a day. It's so interesting. And it's hard for me to talk about these things without getting emotional. I feel very close to all of the things that you're saying and that you're talking about. I think that, I've got these little mantras I'm trying to repeat because I've been trying to fix something in all the ways other than just trying to wish it into existence. Yeah, and I think that, and also I had an issue with gratitude. I had an issue with feeling grateful. And I think that that's been a real big block for me. I think that I had an issue with people giving something to somebody for charity and expecting that person to have this overwhelming gratitude. I found it condescending to the recipient and patronizing to this recipient. And so when I was growing up, we were in foster care and stuff, and people would hand us things, and we'd be so ever so grateful for that, you know, and we should love it, whatever it is it's been given to us, because we didn't have anything. So, and I have a problem with that. And I did do all this training about empowering and helping people, help without hurting. And what that means is teach them how to fish. Don't just keep giving them fish. And I always, and if you saw a homeless man, don't expect him to love the pair of shoes you've just given him, because he might not love them. He's allowed to have an opinion. And so I had this conditioning that just because I have nothing, I don't have to love what you gave to me just because you gave it to me, right? I'm allowed to have an opinion. I'm allowed to like it or not, or I'm allowed to feel a certain way. But I think that stance that I took for my own self, I still believe that about people that unfortunate, that more unfortunate than I am, that they shouldn't have to accept a gift from me if they don't love it. That's my take. But my feeling, don't get me wrong, I'm very thankful for so many things. And I did have this, well, we shouldn't have to be grateful all the time. And I realized I was wrong. And maybe my feeling of not being full of gratitude was affecting me in more ways than I realized. And listen, I don't want anything. I'm such a lucky person, and if I need something, I can go get it. And I don't need a car, and I don't need diamonds. I don't need things. And I suppose maybe up until the last couple of years, I've not needed anything, I thought. And the crazy thing is, I think everything that you talk about, it's already happened with me. It's because there's nothing in my life that I didn't know was going to happen. Even this and these bad things, I knew, I could feel it. And so I think I've been unconsciously aware of what I think and how I feel about it. I was kind of creating that, I was making these things happen. But my lack of gratitude, now I've kind of taken a different stance on it, and now I'm saying every day, I'm so happy and I'm so grateful. And this is manifestation and vision and believing, but I say to myself every day, I won't be able to say this without crying, so I won't. But I say that my mantra is, I'm happy and extremely lucky to be the mother of these 3 children, and it goes on. So I'm trying to create, that momentum. But yeah, I think I've been really surprised that such a mental thing that happened. The end of last year, I was so sick. And not sick I wasn't in a wheelchair, I didn't lose my sight, I wasn't diagnosed with anything. But if you saw my blood work, I was walking around, and they call it fight and flight, whatever. And I realized, okay, I either just go to sleep, or I fight in a different way. I need to get healthy again. So I started to just look for peace and quiet and me time, giving myself back Mondays and taking more walks and maybe meditating, trying to go to bed early. These aren't necessarily your process, but these were my ways of
that's the start,
healing the mind. And I suppose that's maybe where you started.
It's exactly where I started.
Where you
it's identifying that you're having these blocks. But Carrie, what you can do that's so different is the thoughts that you're having, the core concepts. You remember the 80,000 thoughts a day?
Yes. God. Double it.
I would venture to guess that you'll have the 10 recurring thoughts, and it's going to be something along the lines, which does create disease. I'm unlovable. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Some variants of those. And wherever your symptoms are in the body is where the solution is. So where you manifested, where those thoughts settled in the body is where your solution is. Does that make sense? So when you're in this chronic limbic response, this chronic flight, chronic run, avoid, that's going to store in the body. And then the beliefs, the automatic negative thoughts are going to feed where that disease is showing up. And it's this bi-directional loop. And exactly where you started is where I started. started recognizing these thoughts and stopping them in the tracks. And you don't have to, I think it's a big ask to go, I feel grateful. Because when you're coming out of a numb response, feeling frozen, we have to shut down our bodies to feel numb in order to, sometimes emotions are
and
so
my
painful.
lack of having to feel grateful was I had to feel grateful all my life because we came from nothing, we had nothing. And then everything that I do have, and yes, I've met beautiful people along the way, but everything I do have, I've worked damn hard to get it. So I think that was my issue. And that's ego, right? Me thinking, well, I did this and I got my, but I worked that hard at the detriment to me and probably my family and probably lots of things too. I was maybe numb to healing something. I was just fighting. I was a boxer, but not in the same way you were. Yeah.
And the key with that is there's nothing broken. There's nothing to fix. All you have to do is become aware of it. When you become aware of it, you have a complete energetic shift. So when people say, I feel grateful, that's a big ask coming out of limbic response. Just start with I am. It's big different than I feel so grateful holding my newborn baby. I am grateful for this cup of water.
Yeah.
It's different. So it's shifted. There's so much pressure to manifest now.
Yes.
Manifest. And it's just, all it is become aware of the negative thoughts that are happening to deactivate the nervous system and just allow the body to sink back into its natural state. When we stop living in this constant go, one of the things, if I say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I catch myself.
Yeah.
Because that is such a sign I don't have my life imbalanced. If I have to keep saying I'm so busy, I'm doing something wrong.
What is the body's natural state? Where should we be in our heart and minds? What is our natural state?
Love that question. Flow. Right. It's actually a paradoxical effect. When I've seen you work, brilliant what you do. I see you get in the flow. I can see you linked into me, linked into lighting, and you're in the flow. You're not thinking, you're in the flow. Your mind and your heart are connected. And you feel relaxed, but yet alert.
Yeah, because I can't cope if I hear the AC going or somebody starts talking over me working. It interrupts my flow and I lose it. Like I lose my thought because I get distracted. So I like people to just not.
We're feeling beings that happen to think. Think about it this way. I'm hungry, I'm going to feel hungry. I cut my finger, I'm going to feel hurt. We happen to think. We become thinking beings that happen to feel.
Yeah.
When we're in the flow, our mind and our body and our heart are all connected. So to reach that flow, our digestive system's working really good. It's talking to our brain's talking to our GI tract. Our immune system is nice and chill. So it's creating what's called good stress. And this is actually part of it for children. Children nowadays don't have a sense of purpose. So what gives you self-efficacy? What gives you a good sense of self-esteem? You as an artist, as a creator, you get in the flow, your self-efficacy. You can figure it out. You can figure any lighting out and make it happen.
But the children need to be taught these things.
They have no sense of purpose, and it's actually called privilege of victimhood. Like, really think about that. How many of our children, mine included, live in such privilege they can be laying around and be victims of it?
Oh, absolutely.
And if I'm pointing a finger, I got 4 pointing back at me. It's the privilege that we can sit around and marinate in our own misery.
Yeah.
And we don't have a sense of flow, a sense of purpose. It doesn't have to be saving the world. It can just be out gardening, climbing a tree, swinging on the swing set. The first thing I tell kids to do is go outside and skin your knee.
Yeah, we've been so disconnected from the energy of the planet where we live, our home. We're just not in it. We live in a virtual reality.
Exactly. And what's missing is you have to go do this, you have to study, and the parents are running their kids all over town. And I'm like, stop.
Let them get bored.
And go figure it out.
Yeah.
My favorite line is, you'll figure it out, honey. You'll get it. You'll figure it out. I trust you. If you need me, I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's establishing what gives people a sense of purpose, what increases their self-efficacy. And that is where wellness is bred, and it fosters and it grows. It's marinating in this, I'm a victim. For children, they have nowhere to place their energy and nowhere to place this sense of self-growth. And everything's done briefly.
Yeah, no, let's talk. I want to know, so we know why you've written a book and who it's for, parents of these children. How are they able to use this book to create a healthier environment for their child?
So attachment styles, I springboard exactly where I wanted to go. Our minds are synced up. Attachment style, the main attachment styles I see are bulldozing parent that completely bulldoze any obstacle for the child, get it out of the way. They'll do their homework for them, they'll remove any obstacle. Then we know the helicopter parent, but I call them the be careful parent. Johnny's doing the monkey bars. Johnny, be careful, don't fall. Inherently, your child knows not to fall from the monkey bars.
Yeah.
So if we scream, Johnny, be careful, don't fall, now the playground's unsafe.
Yeah.
Johnny, be careful riding your bike. No, riding the bike's not safe. Johnny, be careful at school. You might get shot.
Yeah.
So this be careful parent, we used to be called the helicopter parent, then the bulldozing parent. So parental attachment styles are one of the number one indicator for childhood disease, autoimmune and GI disorders. So the book really gets into what a parenting attachment style are you as a parent and what can you do to change it. The most dangerous attachment style is avoidant dismissive.
Right.
Parents,
and how does that work?
It's the hardest one to treat, man. Parents that dismiss and validate your child who's sick, you just want attention. And my response is, they want attention, then please, by all means, give it to them.
Yeah.
Give it to them. Because that means your child's going to be suicidal in about 6 months. So when I hear parents say, oh, they just want attention, I'm like, okay, well, please give it to them. So I'm not treating them for suicide ideation in 6 to 8 months. So dismissive avoidant, they invalidate the child's feelings. Oh my God, I'm so stressed. Well, you shouldn't feel stressed. I feed you, I water you, you have devices, everything you want. Agreed, the parent's right, the child has everything. The child still feels stressed. But when you dismiss it and you avoid it, could you imagine going to your partner going, oh my God, I had such a bad day. Well, that's your problem, you had a bad day.
Yeah.
You should be doing this. When we tell our kids how they should feel, we're telling them to disconnect from their emotions, disconnect from them inherently who they are, and tell them you can't trust how you feel because you should feel how I tell you.
Yeah.
And that creates a disease, a dis-ease in the body because they can't connect their own mind and body and emotions. So an avoidant parent tells a child they shouldn't feel a certain way, they shouldn't be doing this, and if a child expresses how they feel, they tell them it's invalidated or they walk away. It is the most dangerous form of parenting. Oftentimes I'll see children with autoimmune diseases with this avoidant parents.
I'm just wondering how my generation are even alive. How there's any of us left, because I think there's so many things.
We're changing the world.
I feel like what you just said, that was me growing up, like, just, and not just from my parents, from teachers, from around me, from my early work life, and it was, I felt I grew up 100% self-aware that I just took care of myself.
I agree, hyper-independence. And we have swung the pendulum so big that we now bulldoze parents.
You're
and
right, and
parents.
I know that. And and this is something that we're fighting now more on a financial level. I've been like, stop making it so easy. And my son pranked his car, and my husband's like, it's going to cost $1,300. I said, it's not going to cost us. He did it. He has to be responsible. He's just earned this money. And that money is going to be taken away from him now. He needs to pay. So he didn't pay all of it. He paid half. To be honest, I wanted him to pay all of it. I wanted him to feel the consequence of his actions so he'd know what that felt like. But yeah, we're doing exactly what you said. We are being bulldozer parents. My children won't have college debt. They won't have any of the things. I mean, I didn't have the privilege of going to college, but so it's what is the safe zone? Where are we doing it right? What can we do so we don't overcompensate our avoidant, dismissive parents by being a bulldozer parent? Like, what are you seeing more of? Do you feel like you've got a swing in the parenting styles that you're being confronted with?
Oh yeah, I see avoidant and bulldozer.
Right.
Avoidant, bulldozer too. The
avoidance, where do you think their parenting style came from? Not them. How were they parented?
Avoidant as well. What's so fascinating, the type of parental attachment style you're the exact same with your partner.
Right.
So avoidance, usually are avoidant with their partner, avoidant with their children. But the bulldozing parent and a lot of parents who have anxious attachment style, the be careful parent, have children who are highly, highly anxious who have GI disorders because the thoughts manifest. So the balance is you're raising an adult, not a child. Like, you're raising a human being to be an adult. We're raising our children to be children. I'm saying parents.
So true, because we're seeing so many 24-year-olds that have no sense of direction because they've not had to do anything.
Because they're still children. They can't adult. You know how many children, pediatrics I treat that go to college and can't make it on their own? Or 18-year-olds that can't drive? Or 26-year-olds who can't go out and live in the world? You're raising an adult, not a child. It's teaching them self-efficacy. Yeah, you're gonna fall. You okay, sweetie? I'll help you. But don't run in. Like, it's this balance of, how do I empower my child to have self-efficacy, to trust their own feelings, to trust their own gut, and then go act on it and then figure it out. The biggest gift a parent can give their child is failure.
And using the right words when communicating.
Yeah. And that's a whole podcast in itself, but just things like you shouldn't or you need to. If someone tells me you need to, I'm like, can you rephrase that, please?
Yeah, so this is a second book and then a third.
Yeah.
But which is amazing. And what have you created in the book for people? Is this a handbook? So is this better read before sickness becomes a thing? Is this something we should be giving out at baby showers? Or is this somewhere someone's out there desperately seeking help for their child and this is where they go? I know that you're a counsellor for people, so you have clients that come to you, and who comes to you? Who decides this is the route I need to go down in order to heal my child, rather than nipping to the doctors to get a prescription? When do they decide? Is it when they've run out of options with their health?
So two-part.
Yes.
The book is actually, my closest friend is a pediatrician. She's like, this should be given to every pregnant mother.
Yeah.
So that's an option. The other option is I wrote it from the depths of despair, of my own despair. Of like, I have the answers. We're on the boat. I got the oars. Here are the answers. Take them. Because I only have so many hours a day I can work with people.
Absolutely.
So it is literally a step-by-step what you can do as a parent. That's really complex neuroscience that's broken down into, hey man, don't say you need to, don't say you should have, and try not to bulldoze. It just really breaks down these concepts. So they've gone to the doctor. I prefer to see a patient. All organic medical reasons have been ruled out.
Right.
So if they have a true genetic condition that I don't want to hypnotize them or use some sort of adjunct therapy for them to ignore the pain. So it's when there's no organic reason for the autoimmune disease, there's no organic reason for the GI disorder, when you have no answers, the drugs aren't working, and you're financially destitute because these testings are so expensive. This book has the answers in conjunction with using holistic methods as well. Any pharmaceuticals needed. It's not just do mine.
Yes,
this is the missing piece that no one is talking about. The power of the subconscious mind to heal the body. Yes, diet works, nutrition works, different functional medicines, they work, but no one's addressing the limbic response, parenting attachment styles, belief systems. And this just fills the piece of the pie that makes the pie complete.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And when your clients come to you, what's the process that how do you work with them as a psychotherapist? What methods do you use in your clinic?
I can use a bunch of scientist words. It's just going to sound really, really boring.
No, but just, layman's terms, just say we use acupuncture, or we use hypnotherapy, or
something called psychoneuroimmunology. Psycho, mind, neuro, body, nervous system, immunology, how your immune system responds. Our thoughts mimic in our nervous system and then mimic in our immune system. So I tap into the science of the thoughts.
And what's your process of tapping in? How do you, physically, what are we sitting here like this having a conversation, or are you getting them to lie down on a couch?
By talking. So you talked to me and I collected what I call data points. I use your language that tapped into your subconscious mind, and I can data point just by the language you use in 5-minute conversation where your inner child wound is, what your core beliefs are, and where your weakness and where your strengths are. So just
I'm kind of terrified right now. There was a lot of data points. I know you had
I'm sorry, I can't help it. But so the child will just tell me about their day, and I'll say, I'm telling you about your symptoms, or if you had a magic wand, what would you wake up and feel tomorrow? 5 minutes of talking, I have their treatment plan written, because their language is the cue to me. The symptoms are the solution. So just by talking, so then I'll start empowering the child how their mind is creating this process. And the most mind-blowing impact with the child is when they acknowledge and admit what their secondary gain is. 100% of my patients,
Which is an incredible thing.
hundreds of patients, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100 will always admit to a secondary gain, but we will not always tell the parent. In this book, it will list the secondary gains that kids do. I'll have kids admit their secondary gain, feel better, and still pretend to be sick so their secondary gain is still met. I'm like, I don't care, as long as you're feeling better. I can't tell the parent, but the kid's feeling better, the disease progression stopped, but they still want this behavior to continue the reward.
Wow. And it makes perfect sense.
I know, right?
And I've never heard about this.
I know.
It's incredible. No, it really is amazing. So is your book released?
Not
I was
yet.
about to talk to us about that.
So the book's coming out about September. Heal Your Mind, that's the podcast, Empower Your Child to Heal. And it really breaks down 7 ways to overcome autoimmune and GI disorders. And it's for the parent to learn what you can do to empower your child and really easy to understand. And then there's a podcast coming out in March, Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body. And
Which I think is going to be, so it'll be a great way for that book to be absorbed in, you're going to use methods, I'm sure, and talk about methods in your book, but this medium that I sit and listen to podcasts all day long in my car for people to hear, to hear your teachings.
So what actually parents, what you can do right now, anyone can do, and it's drsky.net. There's free downloads. I'm going to have weekly or bi-weekly free downloads for the parent tips. Right now, if you download it, there's 5 things you wish your kids wish you knew. And it's kind of a heart-wrencher to read, because it's things I could never tell the parent that I've heard over, since 2017, confidentiality. I wish my parents knew this. I wish my parents knew that. So I'm going to provide free downloads every week or so for the parents and start giving them some feedback and some free tips.
That's amazing.
How to start making a difference.
I feel kind of like emotional and drained and all the things. I think that because, and I knew as soon as I met you and all the things that you were talking about, I'm in the haze of all of this kind of stuff right now, and a bit late. My kids have up and left and all of those things. But hey, I'm tapping into this for me so that I can be a better grandparent and be a better parent to my adult children, but not grandparent yet. But thank you so much for today. Remind us again where they can find you.
drskyler.net.
drskyler.net. And your book is being released when?
September, Empower Your Child to Heal.
And the podcast comes out in March. And obviously,
we'll
be sharing that.
Be on everywhere. Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body, Spotify, Apple, Google.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Very
so
appreciative.
great talking to you. No, it was lovely. Thank you.